The sun is shining. It's a real contrast from what we had here at Hockenheim earlier on in the day as pre-qualifying is underway. Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Endurance Cup. It is event 4 of the season. We had that triple point scoring round at Spa with points at 6 and 12 as well as 24 hours. It's really shuffled the championship, and we're looking forward to tomorrow's race, not only because it promises to be a very competitive one, but it's a new venue for the championship. Quite a lot of the drivers do have knowledge of this from other categories, but even so, it's a bit of a step into the unknown for many of the drivers and certainly a good number of the teams. David Addison, John Watson are trackside, and the circuit is a lot busier straight away, John, than it was in the wet this morning.
Well, I can do one thing with confidence, and that is tear up the practice times from the free practice session we had earlier this morning when the track was more like a swimming pool than a racetrack. So now back to full dry conditions at Hockenheim. Looking forward to seeing some real, and I would say good work from all these competitors. 49 cars here this weekend. There's one of the principal challengers, 32, Kelvin van der Linde behind the wheel. Kelvin suffered a little bit coming out of turn 11, getting onto the gravel when it was a wet racetrack, but looking totally confident, as he always usually does.
Well, indeed so, and strangely, we don't talk about this car for the championship. It had a pretty rotten Spa. It's very much in with the chance of winning, of course, in sprint and overall potentially, but as far as the Endurance Cup is concerned, it's pretty much out of the reckoning, which is not something we often can say about WRT. So there's a race win here that they're going to chase, but in terms of championship points, it's a rather different story this weekend.
And just watching Kelvin van der Linde in the 32 Audi, how much difference in terms of the confidence and the belief in the car. Just a glimpse into the pits, so Dries van Thor, but running to the very edge and maybe marginally over what might be loosely described as track limits here at Hockenheim. There's a lot of flexibility, latitude as to what is considered to be racetrack, what is considered not to be racetrack. So I think maybe the leeway that was being given for earlier today, it doesn't really matter, it was wet, might be becoming a bit of a narrower perception. Christopher Mies currently, well, he was quickest. In fact, he's now just overtaken yet again by the car that was quickest in the wet this morning, the Butchen Racing Audi.
And it's now Benjamin Lessen at the wheel. Adam Eteki did the time this morning. Christopher Mies second. Yeah, just to make the point about this morning, it was very, very wet indeed. And the race director had already said, look, it's the first time the championship's here. I'll give you some leeway, so we won't penalise for track limits. We'll advise you of where you've overstepped the mark, then you know for later in the day, and then we will clamp down, but you'll have a session where you can go and explore as it's only free practice. But now it matters because, of course, were qualifying not to happen, pre-qualifying order would determine your grid. So they can't run a mock here. They've got to be restrained and they've got to abide by the regulations.
Absolutely. I mean, if they gave them free rein here in this 1.5 hour pre-qualifying session and then said, oh, in qualifying we're going to implement track limits, everybody would be, well, we don't know what the track limits are because we weren't given any guidance. So I think those track limits should be brought in this session to ensure that both teams and drivers are fully cognizant, I like that word, of what is permitted and not permitted.
Cognizant sounds like an Aston Martin sponsor. Nicolas Scheergaard for Garage 59 has gone to the top of the times, 1 minute 38.130. So yes, the ripped up piece of paper from earlier on had us doing 1 minute 53s in the wet, but at the moment we are much, much quicker, and these are proper lap times now being offered up. This has the makings of being a very, very different sort of pre-qualifying session, because all the things they couldn't do this morning in the wet, they need now in the dry, as well as going for a time.
So we're looking here at 25. Christopher Mies has just, where has he dropped? He's dropped all the way down to 7th in the space of that very brief moment we were discussing. But Christopher Mies in traffic, so he's going to have to back out of it a little bit and find space. But where is the space? There's nothing ahead of him. He can't drive through it. There's no space behind him. He can't drop back. So he's kind of caught in a bit of a no man's land, but inevitably it will sort itself out.
All 49 cars have ventured out, if not yet having done a time, as their number 56 Porsche from the Dynamic team tries to wriggle out of the way. You've got Mathieu Cairoli in 54. And the sister car I'm hunting for in the times right now to try to find who was behind the wheel of that. Robert Renauer has put 911 Porsche up to second fastest. And I'm still hunting. It is Marius Narken in 56. Yes, Marius Narken. So we don't have, of course, the GPX Martini liveried Porsche that we had at Spa. That was only for IGTC purposes, with still America and Abu Dhabi to go before the end of the season. Nicholas Nielsen hunting down Christopher Mies now, number 25 Audi versus number 51 Ferrari. Nicholas Nielsen reigning champion. And guess who's gone quickest? Raffaele Marciello into the 1:37s now.
So that is the first car we've seen so far in this, but we've only been running just over 9 minutes. So 1:37.996 will be the benchmark time. And I anticipate that these times are going to drop fairly quickly because we had such amount of water on the racetrack this morning. What would have been the traditional racing line, albeit you can see all those tire marks as they come into turn 2, but the circuit will need to in effect be rubbered back in again, and the process of what we're watching now will hopefully ensure that the racetrack, you know, maybe we're looking at a lap time ultimately somewhere in the middle, maybe one high minute 35s, should the track come to the teams.
So up towards the Spitzkehrer comes Thomas Neubauer there in the Gulf liveried Audi. That's well clear in the Silver Cup within the championship. Could even wrap that up this weekend. So Thomas Neubauer, former Mercedes racer, accelerates now down towards turn 7. It's a fast right, that, but then you stand on the brakes here for turn 8. And Neubauer avoids the cement dust put down. We had a Renault Clio session early on in the day, qualifying. Somebody managed to do a virtual lap's worth coming into the pits of putting oil down. That all had to be treated. It delayed things by half an hour, rejigged the timetable, and it made the GT4 qualifying session look like a rallycross circuit. But gradually now, the tarmac is shining through again, but it's still quite dirty offline.
Certainly is, and Raffaele Marciello, we said a minute ago he was quick as he's now, all the way down in 4th. Dennis Marshall in the 66 Audi tops the times.
He's done a 1:37.748. Neubauer bails into the pit lane. And again, come in quickly. Why? Because you're practicing your pit stops at this point. How quickly can you arrive? Where do you stand on the brakes? And a spin for number 11 Audi. I had a couple of offs in the wet earlier, and Hugo Vallon has looped in at the Sachs curve. And I can see him out of our window. He's trying to get going again. Nicolas Scherl here, bouncing over the curbs. We might be going full course yellow here to get the Audi that you've just seen spinning out of the way. No, he's, oh gosh, trickling back, but he's about to rejoin. I think we might get away with this as Scherl heads to the timing line. Was 14th and is still 14th, didn't improve. And the road is clear at the Sachs curve. There it is, he's got going again.
Yeah, I mean, unusual to spin the Sachs curve. It's one of those corners that's not particularly quick. Maybe on the entry, lost it under braking. The back end might have swung around, and that would then the pendulum effect take over. But just watching the difference between how drivers were managing the wet conditions and now dealing with dry conditions. I mean, there is certainly an attack mode coming from everybody. It's great to watch.
So there, the Sky Tempesta Mercedes turns through. There, the Iron Dames Ferrari, Rahal Frey at the wheel of it, number 83. Gold Cup entry, Gold Cup championship leading car, breaks the beam and should have improved on that lap. 1:39.6. Actually, no, dropped to 10th, so Rahal Frey not quite as quick. So even though one would have anticipated an improvement, it didn't come.
Competitive class, the Gold Cup, 12 entries here this weekend, and I think for the first time, and I can't remember how long, the pro entry has been beaten in terms of numbers. There are 16 pro cars, but there are actually 18 Silver Cup entries. So interesting. What is maybe more surprising, there are only 3 Pro-Am entries in the entire 49 car field.
And this the 10th venue as well for an endurance round of the championship. Rahal Frey coming out of the Spitzkehrer with the AWS Events Lamborghini in the background. That car with Loris Cabarrou at the wheel of it. But Rahal Frey presses on. Dennis Marshall, as John was saying, is the fastest by 0.3 of a second from Nikolai Schiergaard's Garage 59 McLaren, then Christian Kleen's McLaren, number 111, third. This could be, you were suggesting in the free practice this morning, this could be a good Ferrari circuit, and I would concur. It also looks like the McLarens might be pretty competitive here.
McLaren looking very strong, second and third quickest provisionally, presently. A long way to go, an hour and 17 minutes. I just thought maybe Ferrari might suit the nature of the circuit. I mean, Mercedes suit pretty much every circuit. Waiting to see what Audi can respond to. McLaren looking very strong indeed. So it's a bit of a, well, nobody really knows because there was no significant running yesterday, albeit the bronze test, but that was for the lower ranked drivers. To get the let's call it the pro drivers, the A-class drivers behind the wheel running in earnest as we look at the number 2, Mauro Engel. So he goes on, thunders out of turn 1, up into 2. Interesting that they don't take the line into turn 2 they took this morning when it was wet. They were coming out of turn 1 and going well across to the right and then back to the left. Now when it's fully dry, they're staying on the left all the way up. So there must be something about that little bit of the racetrack, which in wet weather conditions, those experienced of the circuit know, stay well clear of.
Interesting as well how many of the cars that were quick early on in the session have now pitted. So one run and then either bring back the data or come in for a driver swap. But as I say, all 49 have been out. We had quite a few people off the road in the earlier session. It was Arnold Robin towards the end that spun at turn 1 with about 5 minutes to go, and that brought out a red flag. So the number 33 WRT Audi was the one that rather affected things. 1 or 2 drivers also being done this morning for speeding in the pit lane. So eager were they to get back in and get dry.
Mauro Engel presently down in 33rd position, runs way wide through turn 11 in now to the Sachs curve. So what will Engel manage? I'm sure this is going to be a significant leap forward, albeit his middle sector time lost a lot of time there. Couldn't really see any reason. Well, he knows the reason because he's dived into the pit lane. He wasn't going to waste time doing another or finishing the lap knowing that it probably wasn't going to be of any significance.
So in he comes. You can see the BMW Junior BMW there. The Max Hesse, Neil Verhagen, Dan Harper car is up towards the timing line now. Goes Benjamin Lessen. Way wide in the background, the Santalock Audi.
I mean, that came through an absolute full-blooded four-wheel drift. Dominic Baumann, I mean, what, that wasn't Dominic, that's Dominic Baumann there in the Mercedes. But the Audi looked absolutely on its tippy toes.
That was the Christopher Mies car. Christopher's still at the wheel. But Dominic Baumann, who is the driver coming to this weekend, ahead in the Pro-Am competition. And now sprinting his way up towards the Parabolica. He's been successful here in the past in the German GT Championship. So again, Dominic Baumann, the Austrian driver, knows what he's doing around here.
There's 2 big black marks on the left-hand side of your screen coming into that hairpin bend. I don't know how they got there, or I don't know who it would have been that would put them down, but it looks like a dragster has been up and down that part of the racetrack when it's not a drag racing weekend here at Hockenheim. Certainly not on the racetrack.
Not deliberately, anyway, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. There is a drag strip element, but fresh rubber laid. Right, Louis Machiels is at the foot of the times. Dominic Baumann is 11th, as you look at him. And on this lap, Dominic Baumann not improving in the first sector nor the second, I fear. No, he's not. So Dominic Baumann a little bit down in the times, ahead of Enrique Chavez and Louis Machiels within Pro-Am at the moment. So just the 3 in Pro-Am.
So is he coming in? Oh no, he's going to continue on. So nothing of gain on this particular lap for the Austrian driver. It comes out of turn 16. And behind the Audi, again, runs way wide on the exit. So Baumann into turn 1 and starts another lap, 88. So what are we going to expect?
Well, Marciello's done a personal best in sector 1. So the Italian driver is pushing hard, that is for certain. And he has got to find just over 3/10 to be the fastest. But that's not that easy in the ultra-competitive world of GT3 racing.
Well, all the times at the front are all very close. There's only hundreds of seconds between them. So a significant improvement, let's say half a second a lap, would elevate Marcello to the top of the provisional overall classification. So into Sachs curve. He looked okay this morning in the rain. He didn't set, and he didn't sort of do something that made us all go.
He did have a spin, which rather surprised us. absolute best in the first sector, Mattia Drudi in the number 12 Audi. Marcello is the fastest though, goes through, goes top by 1,000th of a second over Dennis Marshall. So he is the quickest by the narrowest of margins.
Said the increments would be little. That's maybe extending that to a little bit more than a 1,000th of a second. So 32. Where is the WRT Audi? Kelvin van der Linde behind the wheel. Well, it is currently in 11th position, but he's not looking to make much improvement with that first sector time down 0.3 of a second and traffic ahead.
So number 32 Audi goes through, chasing one of the fleet. Kelvin van der Linde pursues 31, which also had a spin this morning. And it's currently got Finlay Hutchison at the wheel of it. So Kelvin van der Linde is 11th quickest. Marcello, Marshall, Kiergaard, Drudi the order. Mattia Drudi up to 4th in the times. And Marcello is still on a mission as he goes past the Audi, but actually slower in the first sector of this lap.
Yeah, van der Linde did the decent thing, allowed Marcello to go through. So Marcello on another flying lap, albeit it's not indicating anything remarkable in the first two sectors. But Kelvin van der Linde wasn't particularly quick himself. Saw the Mercedes coming, or the Mercedes AMG GT3, as we have to call it. So that got through cleanly, and Kelvin van der Linde can then recommence another flying lap.
And I have a feeling that van der Linde is about to
He's in the
go
pit
for
lane.
the pit lane, isn't he?
He is.
So in he comes. 98, the Rover Racing Run BMW of factory driver Augusto Farfus, up now to turn 2. The Bernie Ecclestone curver, if you want to give it its full title. Nikolai Kiergaard is up to 3rd once more. Mattia Drudi briefly briefly 3rd, but has now gone back down to 4th, suggesting a lap disallowed there. Van der Linde 11th. So Mercedes brackets AMG, close brackets, Audi, McLaren, Mercedes AMG, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche is the top 10.
An interesting little mix. Nothing one could say that's conclusively favouring one brand over the other 8 side by side, and the Ferrari not very happy there with the JP Motorsports. McLaren coming into turn 11, don't know what that all was about, but Farfus having to fight a little bit. You see, sorry, a big one coming into turn 7, then 8, 9, 10, now coming into turn 11 as he will enter into the stadium area.
So Farfus dives into the Motordrome, runs it wide over the curb. And of course, as we said early on, now track limits are going to be rather more carefully monitored, but we're not seeing lots and lots of messages here to say that people are in strife. Farfus then rattles through that little kink, that left-right flick up towards the Sud curver. Way wide there, isn't
yeah,
it?
definitely. I mean, that is taking the arc to... Well, he was floating the arc on that one, but that was a well wide. I mean, it looks fantastic to see the car making 15 and 16, one continuous and almost perfect sweep through the 2 corners.
Sky Tempesta Mercedes we saw little of this morning, but this now is Martin Conrad at the wheel of it, so he is brought in. Jonathan Hui, who's got rather a lot of BWPs, not here this weekend, behavioural warning points. So it's Eddie Cheever, Chris Froggatt and Martin Conrad, who knows the car, even if he's not worked with these 2 drivers before.
Wonder will he bring something to this car. It's been a little bit of a struggle for Sky Tempesta all season with the new Mercedes AMG GT3. They thought they got on top of it at Spa, but there's still, I think, more that can be eked out of this package. We know how good the Mercedes AMG GT3 package is.
Well, right now, Martin Conrad accelerates down to the Spitzkehrer. Turns through that right-hander. Way out wide over the curb. Regroups, but not quite sure what triggered all of that. That was a mistake somewhere that pitched him off the road. That wasn't just abusing track limits, that was a mistake. So Conrad now down to turn 8.
And certainly you can see all the speedy drive that's gone down on the racetrack, that light-coloured topping on the surface that was done to clear the remnants of the Renault Clio sump. That appears to be the worst part of the racetrack, but it's pretty much all the way around, as we have seen.
So Martin Conrad comes through the sector curver, opens up the steering, back on the throttle. You see that half a steering wheel, there's no wheel to it, there's just a left and a right side of the controller, really.
Is Martin Conrad a blinker or not? Doesn't look like he is. Not difficult to see all the way through that little sequence.
Certainly focused on the back of the Ferrari, isn't he?
He's got that to, well, measure himself against the 71 Ferrari, which we know is a fast car, but currently yet to show its true potential. The sister car is up in 10th place, Nicholas Nielsen.
Now this is Alessio Rivera, Italian GT champion, and he is at the wheel of number 71, which I don't think he got into this morning. It was rather commandeered by Antonio Fuoco. But Rivera now, who's a very rapid driver, make no mistake about it, comes into the Spitzkehrer with very nearly the first half an hour, the first third completed. We're not far away from that now.
Just looking down, Marcello set a very quick time in Sector 1. I wonder have they fitted a new set of rubber to that car, because his second place car is still Dennis Marshall. He's 0.4 of a second up in one sector, and that normally indicates, as you look at Alessio Rivera, now watch the feet, very gentle applications on the throttle, just feeding it in, opening it up, nothing aggressive about that. But I just wonder what Marcello was doing now. His middle sector is not green or purple, but again, it's quicker than Marshall previous best, so one might expect to see an improvement from, well, in fact, it's Danny Juncadella behind the wheel, not Raffaele Marcello.
We have a car that's stationary on the pit straights. There it is, number 7 McLaren of Frederick Schandorf. He's got going again. Schandorf's had a moment, and he ran it wide over the curb, and it all went wrong.
Tank slapper!
Exactly. And there he was, around and around, and had to fire the car up and rejoin.
Yeah, and that'll be flat spot central for those. So that set of tyres on the McLaren. There is the McLaren making its way back. It'll be probably a lumpy, bumpy ride. I suspect the steering is vibrating like, well, a vibration, like a vibration.
Bad vibes. Frederick Schandorf then heading for the pit lane potentially. Danny Juncadella has taken over number 88 Mercedes, the fastest car. What we're not yet really seeing is much pace out of the dynamic motorsport Porsches, because one of them is currently 34th, Matteo Cairoli, and the other one is 40th, so they need to get a wriggle on, whereas the Renault Herbert Motorsport car is 11th, and Einstein Guven, Porsche specialist, 22nd overall for Allied.
I suppose if one was being worldly and wise, you'd say, well, they're doing basic work for the race, and maybe towards the end of this, we've just got over an hour of this session, they may try and do a simulation of a qualifying run. So those that have gone really quickly early on have achieved a time. Those that are doing other things maybe wait until the end of the session.
True, true. And again, this, in theory, doesn't affect the grid. But you never know, as we saw in Kyle Army for IGTC last year. Here is the Mercedes of HRT ahead of one of those two dynamic Porsches. This is Matteo Cairoli, who, as soon as we say is struggling, finds a lap time and goes 11th. So that puts him now as the best Porsche driver ahead of Robert Renard.
Yes, Dynamic Motorsport, maybe we're going through a little jobs list, and now they're focusing on finding the speed. So Matteo Cairoli has done so. He got up to 11th position and has improved in Sector 1. Small improvement, but nevertheless, it's always worthy. So what's going to happen in Sector 2? Well, he's lost. It's almost double the gain he had in Sector 1. So probably unlikely to see any further improvement. He might be quick in Sector 3. You never really know until the timing beam has been crossed. So coming through this last sequence of rights and lefts and lefts and rights, this long double suit curve, not curve, there's a curve there, but it's actually a double curve. So the Dynamic Porsche looks very settled. Whether it's quick or not, we'll find out. It is quicker by one position. 0.4 of a second gain in that last sector.
So another improvement, which is good.
So on Caroli goes down this long bending straight. There it is. So top speed into here was round about just a fraction under 250 clicks. That was this morning in the wet. So we haven't yet had a read from what the times or the speeds are in perfect dry conditions. Suspect it'll be another 5 or so or 6 kilometers per hour. Not massively different, but just because you get on the throttle a little bit quicker and earlier. And you something that was, let's say, long term. But Caroli very wide again, coming out of turn 11 into the Sachs curve. This is where the Porsche should be at its best. Traction out of the Sachs curve. Then the quick flick left, flick right, and then settle the car. And then, are you coming into the pit lane? Oh, I'm staying out.
So half an hour gone. Got a couple of cars being looked at for improving under yellow flags, incidentally, from earlier on. After an earlier off, number 11 of Hugo Valence up to 27th. Casper Stevenson, a spinner this morning, goes through. He's 7th quickest at the moment. Well, that car is. The Acclimatise ASP Mercedes, the sister car to the Spa 24 winning entry.
We've got a clutch of Audis, 13th, 14th and 15th. And the best Audi still is Dennis Marshall, who set that time very early in the session on a 137.6. And he's still that 1,000th of a second behind the 88 Mercedes. As we look at the sister car, the 87. So the initial rush of times and the time set by Marcello going into a sort of a quieter period as the Jota McLaren steps aside to let Casper Stevenson get a clean run down into turn 8. Ooh, with the back end under throttle, just swung around, just tightened the exit of the corner for the Brit behind the wheel.
Rob Bell in the McLaren is behind him. Rob Bell 19th at the moment. So the best McLaren, it's actually 159 Dean McDonald, who we've already talked about this year as being mighty impressive. Was it Zandvoort where he stood out as being a real star? But Casper Stevenson, who was impressive as well actually for the 2C's Mercedes team in the Gulf 12 Hours at the start of this year. He comes slowly into the Sud Curva, and is that because he's about to pull the trigger and go? Yes, it is. So lets the traffic get away.
Unfortunately, for those that are behind, they're sort of frustrated, and that, of course, the Jota McLaren of Rob Bell.
So Raffaele Marciello set the earlier best time. He can reflect upon that in the pit lane with Gemma Scott.
Raffaele, obviously coming here after the high of Spa and a wonderful result there, but really focusing now on the latter part of the year.
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, the condition are a bit tricky. This morning was wet, now it's dry, so the track is not mega grippy, but it's okay. We'll see tomorrow in qualifying.
It's a circuit that we haven't visited for quite some time here. How are you finding it, and the team obviously with the setup of the car as well?
I mean, we know the track because we're doing ADAC and other series, but I mean, team is new here, but we know more or less how it should work. It's quite small, this amount of cars, and pit lane is also really small, so it will be a key point in the race for sure.
You see Jean behind you. Obviously, he's getting ready to head out back now. Just one quick question here. Is traffic going to be a problem with the circuit being a little bit smaller?
No, I mean, at the end is the last sector that matters, and more or less it's like Barcelona, so it will be a mess, but like in other tracks.
You're used to it. Thanks a lot, Raffaele.
And it's the same for everybody, isn't it? 40, what have we got? 49 cars. So, yeah, everybody has to cope with it. You just roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of an endurance race where you've got a large field. It's not a short track, 4.5 kilometers, 2.84 miles. But it's inevitable that you always will catch a car at the critical point of your lap, and when another car may be preparing for a lap or has completed a lap, and you're really relying on the courtesy of the driver that's going slowly to be aware of faster traffic closing and, you know, to get out of the way and let those cars get through and not affect their potential lap times.
So Miguel Ramos you're looking at, he is 17th and second in Pro-Am. The fastest car in Pro-Am at the moment is number 20, which we saw Dominic Baumann driving earlier on, Valentin Pierberg, and back behind the wheel this weekend is Ian Loggy, who did drive at Imola, but Ian, who has been concentrating on British GT, also had a go in Carrera Cup GB the other week at Snetterton, and comes back to this championship this weekend. British GT with Jules Gounon next weekend. He's heading seemingly to win British GT. We've got number 3 being reported for speeding in the pit lane. That's one of the Mercedes get speed car. Yeah. Just trying to see who's in it at the moment. It is the American driver Jeff Kingsley. Right, Dean McDonald in the car that Nikolai Kiergaard started the session with. Storms on. And again has just sort of got on with the job this year, but he's been impressive in the extreme in his lap times. Way wide there, up over the curb. But Dean McDonald has been quick. McLarens haven't really had the best of seasons. They've not been finding it easy to adapt to the new tyre for this year, but certainly given the opportunity, Dean has flown.
I think if I've been impressed with his pace, it's just he's got a natural pace. And of course it's this balance of working out how do you switch the tyre on, how do you adapt your car to do that, and doing it in different climates, different temperatures, but certainly not lacking in ability or confidence.
Well, he stays third. Luca Giotto is fourth behind him. 111 has been taken over now by Vincent Abril. And there for the Dynamic team is the Porsche. Ready to go back out. So over the timing line comes the next wave of cars, including number 12, that is Luca Giotto. 4th fastest. The session sort of had that usual flurry of times at the beginning. Now people are settling down and doing a stint run, aren't they?
Yeah, and then giving each driver a decent time behind the wheel. The session this morning, that free practice has been lost in terms of understanding what the track's going to do in these conditions. So you need to allow everybody a reasonable amount of time to learn the track in terms of what it's like now that's bone dry, as opposed to what they found when they rocked up here this morning and it started to rain, and it was relentless for pretty much most of that 1.5 hour session.
One car that's perhaps, 2 cars perhaps, that aren't where you would expect. Antonio Fuoco's Ferrari number 71 is only 26th, and Jack Aitken is only 27th. Actually make it 3. Nick Katzberg is only 28th. But well, they've got time to improve.
That 63 Lamborghini with Jack Aitken was mega impressive. Yeah. But again, teams are working through, I suspect, and they will use up the sets of tyres they have. And when it really matters, I suspect, I can expect to see that 63 Lamborghini up at certainly in the top 10 at the end of this session. I'd be very surprised if it isn't.
So there through is Giotto, but improvements not coming on this lap in the sectors. They have come from Aro Engel though. He's gone 7th, as again, that for me will be an exceeding track limit moment, that, because he was over the blue and onto the green, Luca Giotto, coming out of that last corner of turn 16, the second element of the Sud Curva. I think Giotto is adopting the principle here. I'll keep pushing until I'm told to rein it in.
I think that's a policy that contemporary racing drivers follow. Just watching on the infield, just out of the commentary booth. Back to Valentino. So we saw him in the rain. He had a little spin. Well, let's be generous, it was a little spin. And now getting his experience half a second away in that first sector, coming down into turn 8. He's got the number 2 Mercedes. So who's behind the wheel at number 2? Still is Maro Engel. So I suppose Maro Engel will sit behind and study how Valentino is doing. Don't think that the lap that number 2 car is on currently is representing anything other than just another run to go through the various alterations the team are looking at.
It was interesting watching him this morning in the way. You were talking about the balance that a motorbike racer may have.
Well, you can see the insert at the top of the screen. There's a lot more hand movement coming from Valentino in these dry conditions than we saw in the wet. He was I thought, much more progressive and and smooth in those inputs. Now it's more erratic and very quick hand movements to try and balance the car on that narrow edge of adhesion. He turns and takes another bite of the steering lock. It's been a massive challenge for Valentino all through this season, and every step forward he makes, this competition likewise makes a further step forward.
Very true. And he's done it the brave way, coming straight to GT3, not GT4 first. Let's hear from Augusto Farfus next. He's with Gemma.
Augusto, we're seeing the car gradually improve on times there. It's not actually Nicky Katzberg in the car, it's Nick Yellerly, isn't it? There's a fault there on the screens. But with new rubber, you seem to be improving.
Yeah, I mean, we are climbing up P14. I think if we get all right, I think we should aim for a realistic P10, top 10. Let's see. As I said, we are still building up our car around the track, but it looks okay. We want more. We don't come here for P15, so let's hope for tomorrow for even better qualifying.
It's the first time you've been here in this car with the Pirelli tyres as well, and there's no data to draw on, so this is really valuable time on the track, right?
Yeah, we are learning. You know, it's actually today is the only new set we have, so also to understand the build-up lap and on top to get a clean lap with all these cars on track, it is a big challenge. So I don't think we have a good package. I would not say we are the fast on track, but at the advantage we are on those few cars where the three of us are very similar in terms of pace, and this in qualifying for the average allows us often to do a better job and to put us up there. So let's see. I mean, another night to sleep over. Maybe we can do some tweaks on the car, and tomorrow we go for it.
Thank you very much.
Tomorrow, of course, is when they qualify as well as race. You've got that three-part qualifying first thing. So although the transponder says Katzberg, the team says Yellerly, the British Nick, not the Dutch Nick, and Nick Yellerly caught in traffic here coming out of turn 8.
Just before that interview with Augusto Farfus, we had a little image from within the cockpit of 46, Valentino Rossi, and I think it might have been down at the far end of the circuit. Turning in, he took one hand off the steering wheel. Now, maybe he was just going slowly, but that's not going slowly.
That's Dean McDonald, who's well beat. That was a big spin just ahead of the Rover BMW, and he's looped it coming into the stadium, and he's gone far enough off for the gravel to do its job and stop him. And here it is again. So he turns in, he's lost it coming into the corner, squeal of tyres. Round he goes.
So hopefully the gravel is still sufficiently compacted, but I think maybe he might need assistance.
Red flag.
Oh, it's red flag indeed, yes,
yeah.
It is.
Well, the clock carries on ticking, so this eats into the session. It's not that things are delayed, but the race director very quickly called for a red flag there, knowing that he wouldn't be able to drive out of it. But I think the car is so far into the gravel, it needs a proper recovery. It's not we had in GT4 a couple of cars that were in strife on the edge of the road. You could quickly send out a car with a rope, tug it out, move on. That could be done under a full course yellow. This can't. That's a long way off, and it's going nowhere of its own speed.
You can see just how much has buried itself in the gravel, albeit the gravel is still fairly compacted from all the rain that fell earlier today, and I'm assuming that will be raked over tonight to aerate it and let it sort of have more, what you might call, a resting effect. So the whole field now back into the pit lane, and 47 and a bit minutes of the session remaining, so it shouldn't be too long to get Dean McDonald's car out of the gravel. It's just going to take time to get that vehicle there to begin the process.
Let us down a bit, though. Having been praising him, he's had this moment and gone off the road.
Well, I can see a vehicle which looks like something you would plough a field with, but it's got a snatch bar attached to it, so already rescue is on its way.
Indeed. So this is compare and contrast technologies. GT3 race car versus
a John Deere.
John Deere, yeah.
In this occasion, the John Deere is the winner, I think.
Well, that's in the right place. So the teams can make some adjustments while we have this hiatus for a few minutes.
Now, if you're a bit of a gambler and you're looking for an outside bet, I think that would be a good car for a potential top 3 finish tomorrow afternoon. Got a good driver lineup. It's been quick. It is currently, where am I looking down to see? It's still in 4th place with Luca Giotto setting that time. I think it was Giotto at the time. Maybe it was Christopher Mies. So that car is in that lead group of cars and is the 2nd quickest of the Audis.
There's the McLaren out of the way, and so it won't be long before we can get things back underway. In the meantime, let's head back down to the pit lane. Aurelien Panis from the Antilock team is with Gemma. Let's hear his thoughts.
Aurelien, there you guys are lying in 23rd so far in this session, but it's not evident of what we're going to see this weekend.
Yeah, sure. No, it's just a practice session, so we try different things. This morning it was nice to drive on the wet. Now it's fully dry. The grip is quite low, so it's not easy, but yeah, we work on the car.
This morning was challenging. I mean, it was very, very wet.
Yeah, really wet. I was driving first. There was a lot of water on track, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun to drive on the wet. We didn't drive a lot this year on the wet, so it was good for the experience.
What's the goal this weekend?
You know, the goal is to fight for a good position in silver. I think we have a real good car, real good lineup, so we hope for a podium. Yeah, we are running after a podium during all the beginning of this season, so I hope this weekend we will be on the podium.
Bon courage. Merci. Thank you.
Aurelien Panis, of course, the son of Olivier Panis, former Grand Prix racer. There's the car that's caused this stoppage, Dean Mack, down the pit lane. So no damage to the car, but he's slightly interrupted the flow of the session.
Yeah, I think it might need a bit of a vacuum cleaning out. The gravel gets into places that, you know, make it awkward to, you just can't stick your hand in and drag it all out. Anyway, back safely into the pits, and there's no fundamental damage to the car, just a bit of shrapnel on the underfloor of the car and maybe around the leading edge of the splitter in the front of the car.
Right, we're back in business then. The lights go green at the end of the pit lane. Restart on short notice is the phrase used. So in other words, we're not going to hang about. As soon as we can get you back on track, says race director Alain Adon, we will, and out they pour.
So we've got the number 8 under investigation. The AGS Events Lamborghini. We don't know what they're under investigation for, do we?
I thought I'd seen something about
speeding in the pit lane,
going through a red light in the pit lane.
Well, that's sort of a bit more than being given a bit of a wigging by the headmaster.
Alain Valente then in the number 4 Mercedes presses on.
Nice shot of the Mercedes going past the tribunes that usually the Mercedes family bring their fans to watch from.
And there ahead of him is the number 8 Loris Cabiru Lamborghini that John was talking about being under investigation. Interesting, actually. So many cars on track, get a red flag, restart the session. Relatively few go out. The pit lane is still very, very busy. Bouncing over the curb there is Cabiru.
Yeah, still hopping and bouncing and skipping as they go through turn 15 and 16. So, yeah, I would say certainly more than half of the field, probably 2/3 of the field are actually in the pit lane. Louis Carew just happens to meet at the worst possible point. McLaren just coming out ahead of it, so he had to back out of it.
So the fastest car in the session still, number 88, Mercedes. The time done by Raffaele Marciello, which means although Jules Gounon is behind the wheel maintenant, we have yet to see Danny Jonquière have a spell behind the wheel of that car. Number 7 after its spin is now Brendan Aribe, the very spectacular, very quick American driver. Number 50 BMW goes through shot, the junior team car, Max Hesser at the wheel.
So the Lambo still not finding a way around the McLaren, and caught it just going into turn one, and has not been able to get the job done. So coming down into the stadium section, will he be patient, or will he make a move, a dive down the inside into the Sachs curve? Well, too far back to try that maneuver, and just has to be patient now. The remaining sequence of the stadium section of the racetrack, not easy to find a way past.
I would have thought Brendan Reed was quicker than Cabarrus anyway. I know Lawrence Cabarrus was competitive in GT4, but this Lamborghini is not always the fleetest. And look, Brendan Reed was scarping now. He's pulled that gap.
Yes, and one might say, well, Reed was right to do that because he was fundamentally quicker than the Lamborghini, but it's just the way that they met on the racetrack. And so Brendan Reed was accelerating away, going on to a flying lap.
Now, who else do we have looking quick? At the moment, believe it or not, nobody, because there's hardly anybody looking good in sectors.
Well, it's a sea of yellow, with the exception of Patrick Assenheimer, all the way down in 48th position. Yes. That's the only car that's actually got a green sector time against his name.
There's number 63, which was Jack Aitken this morning, doing great things, and he's pressing on again. He's got himself in a fair amount of traffic now, and 29th this car is, so clearly there is something else to find within it.
Absolutely, and so would Antonio Fiocco in the 71 Ferrari, who's in 28th position. Two cars still that are well out of what would I consider to be their natural performance position. So there is Jack.
Takes to the curb, but in a way he needs to somehow let that traffic go if he's going for a time. Alternatively, you could say stick with it, deal with it, learn where to get past the traffic, because you'll need that come tomorrow.
I think that's the objective here, is actually, while who that dived in, was that, I couldn't quite see the
tails. That was Cabarrus,
yeah,
that was the number 8 Lambo.
This is what's going to happen on Sunday. It'll happen partly in qualifying, but under different context. But in the race, if you're in the leading group of cars and you catch those that are behind you, you've got to work out where you're going to be able to find a way around them. And the sooner you do that, and these are the conditions where you're best placed to work all that out.
So Jack Aitken turns through, and now we'll see what sector times might be like. We have just had an improvement from Charles Weerts up to third fastest, by the way, number 32 Audi, 1:37.936, which means that he's 0.292 of a second back from Raffaele Marciello. Remember, Marciello is quickest, but only by 1,000th. In terms of bravery into the Motordrome, the stadium, it is number 30, Jean-Baptiste Simonard, 170 kilometres an hour through that corner, 5 kph up on anybody else.
I mean, that's a massive amount of time. I wonder where that 5k came from, or was it, well, the point that was just being made to me in my ear before I could even get it out of my very lips is he maybe didn't get around the corner. Thank you very much, Director.
Well, he might have taken to the curb and abused the track limits, but, well, there's the data at least. So, history tells that he was quick in.
Wow,
whether he was quick out.
That's the 50 BMW. That looks like it's got a bit of a move on, and whether it'll be able to consolidate with traffic ahead of him before he Max Hesse. So this certainly looks as if there is speed compared to those cars directly ahead of him. So currently in 24th, I predict this is going to see an improvement in position and lap time from the number 50, the junior BMW. Oh, well, I predicted. I didn't get it wrong, didn't get it right.
Max Hesse at the wheel, and doesn't improve, but he might do on his next lap. As Dennis Marshall, Audi number 66, absolute best sector 1. So now the session is picking up pace.
New tyres, new tyres.
Can't argue at all. But also there's traffic to factor in. You can have the new set of tyres, but if you're absolutely stuck with cars all around you, you've wasted a set. So let's see what he can do. As Dennis Marshall presses on, let's hear from Adam Matecki, because the number 10 Boutsen Audi driver was a real gun this morning in the wet. He was fastest of anybody. He's in the pit lane with Gemma.
Adam, this morning in very tricky conditions, we saw you put the fastest time in free practice. Yeah. Currently lying, I believe, second in Gold Cup.
We were first in the Gold Cup. Was a very nice session because I really like the rain. The rain track is very easy with the Audi, precisely. So yeah, it was very nice.
Are you hoping for more rain this weekend then?
Why not? But I think tomorrow is not raining, but we will see. But yeah, if it's raining tomorrow, it can be very interesting for the qualifying session.
I mean, realistically, you're extremely competitive within the Gold Cup, and overall as well. What's the goal this weekend?
The goal. Can you repeat the question, please?
What's the goal for this weekend? Obviously, Gold Cup, you're looking very competitive, but overall.
The objective, yeah, the objective is like always to win, you know, always to win, but it's not easy. It's always with the bronze driver. If the bronze driver is not fast, it's difficult, but now our bronze on this track is very fast, so I think we can do the podium this weekend. We'll see what happens.
Do you enjoy the circuit?
Sorry?
Do you enjoy this circuit? Yeah,
absolutely. The circuit is really on the dry. It's more difficult right now. Yeah, on this session precisely. But I will work on it, and we'll see for the qualifying tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Bon courage.
No problem. Merci beaucoup.
So the French driver Adam Ateki, Gemma was right to say you're second in the Gold Cup. I think Adam was thinking championship, but in terms of this session, Ralph Bone's Porsche is the fastest Gold Cup entry. Karim Auger, you're watching, is second in Adam Ateki's car, the car that Karim shares with Adam and Benjamin Lessen.
And while we're having that interview, Charles Vetz just slipped in, an improving time for the 32 Audi, now within just a fraction of a tenth of a second slower than the fastest Mercedes. Jules Gounon behind the wheel of that car, but the time was, I think, set by Raffaele Marcello a little earlier in the session.
Yes, you're right, Jules Gounon now into the car. So it's Gounon, Marshall, Wirtz, Vincent Abril, Dean McDonald, Luca Giotto, Jean-Baptiste Simonard, Stein Skockels, Thomas O'Mosca, and then here Mick Vishofer that rounds out the top 10. Mick Vishofer, a regular this year, also in the German Championship, so he knows the circuit, and he dives into turn 12 now into the stadium. I know, I'm telling you a lie, into turn 7. The entry to both looks so similar, but now through 8 and 9. Vishofer, where is he doing good sectors? Not yet. It's an okay lap, but it's not going to shuffle the order.
Certainly he knows the racetrack and the limits of it. You can see just getting that left rear to the very edge of the runoff on the outside of turn 11. And I mean, it's not going to see an improvement unless something comes in this final sector, but it's still not a bad run. Again, we don't know whether he's on tyres that have done a number of laps or just a fresher set of tyres, whatever it is. So he stays in 10th position at 138.398.
I know we've not yet got to a race situation, but I've got to say that the cars look good around this circuit, and I know that the German Championship has been here for many seasons, but it's a much bigger grid of cars that we have here, as out wide goes the number 8 Lamborghini, but they seem to suit this circuit.
I think that the fundamental nature layout of this circuit, this was introduced, or the construction began in 2002, and a part of this construction was with the interest of helmet tilt cup, was to generate close racing and provide opportunities for overtaking. Well, the overtaking thing has been sort of overtaken by aerodynamics and brake performance and tire performance. Nevertheless, there are places around the circuit where passing is possible, but with such a tight field, 49 cars, the gap between the fastest and the slowest, oh goodness, I'm just trying to see down where we are. A second is covering right now the top 28 cars, covered by a second or less. I mean, that is just nuts.
Number 38, McLaren through. That's the Ollie Wilkinson car. We've been looking earlier on at what was going on in silver and talking about the Rofco car. Thomas Neubauer is with Gemma.
Thomas, obviously the weekend started slightly difficult for you guys. On Thursday in the practice session, you had an engine blow.
Yeah, I mean, you never plan to have a break of the engine, but yeah, I would say that we have been pretty lucky not to break the engine, but that the engine breaks during free practice and not during Spa or during the race weekend. So, well, we have lost a bit of driving time and the mechanics have short nights, but I would say that it's okay now.
Well, certainly looking at the times now in this session, it seems to be all running very well.
Yeah, I mean, the car looks pretty fine on this track, and I kind of like it now that the car is good, obviously. But yeah, I think we have a good weekend. We are really focused to aim our achievements, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, this weekend could see you taking the championship, right?
Yes, I mean, we're not obviously thinking about this already, but we're just thinking about ourselves, our work, as always, the same mentality as Spa, and then we'll see where we end up.
Very calm coming into it all, but I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
34 points ahead, 50 race points plus the qualifying points for this round, and Barcelona still to go. So it is feasible, and the Rofco Audi, we know that Thomas Neubauer is good, we know that Jean-Baptiste Simonard is quick, and you've got to say that Benjamin Goethe has got better and better and better since his introduction, when he really was thrown into the deep end as a wet Monza.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it now 4 years, and he's growing up as a person. He was a very young man when he went to Monza, and jumping in the deep end in a very competitive field there was a big ask, but he was growing into it, and maturity is coming and experience together. So he's starting to be consistently good.
Number 2 Mercedes, now Stein Scotthorst. This car is 8th fastest, the Get Speed entry. And we were talking earlier on about Loris Cabirou and a red flag at the end of the pit lane when he's got to go and see the stewards at the end of the session and explain himself. You look at these pictures, you would think it was a different day, wouldn't you, compared to what we had this morning. It's remarkable how quickly it's dried once the sun broke through.
Yeah, I mean, the track was slowly beginning to dry at the end of that sort of free session this morning, but the sun's come out, the ambience gone up, and I mean, it was pretty good. I mean, when we started, it was 23 Celsius, track was 34 Celsius, and I suspect it's gone up a couple of degrees since then. So the only thing lacking was getting fresh race rubber down. So with all cars being out, all 49 runners out on track, not necessarily all at one time, but we're getting the rubber laid down into the circuit, particularly you can see coming down into turn 6. In spite of the rain, there's a lot of black rubber, a very unusual, well, that's a strange line. And the penalty was you run wide on the exit. So I don't really quite understand what Scharnhorst thought he was doing there. Maybe he just overran under brakes.
We've just had another Mercedes have a spin in the stadium, but it's got going again, so the road is clear as Stein Scotthorst wriggles now out of turn 11. So session with now 28 minutes to go. And as we often see in pre-qualifying, it calms down. You have that first flurry, loads and loads of times being shuffled about. Now, let's see where number 51 Ferrari is. It's 13th, and I mentioned that because although Miguel Molina is in it, James Collado, another driver of that car, is with Jam.
James, obviously you haven't been out yet in this session. You're yet to jump into the car, and you'll be out next. But this weekend, Ferraris are seeming to be strong.
Are they?
That's what I've been told.
I've no idea. I mean, I've only done a few laps. All of us have only done a few laps here. It's all kind of new. I haven't been here for 10 years. Last time was GP2.
Wow.
But everything feels okay. I mean, I think we've got a bit of time to find, if I'm honest. But we'll see tomorrow. We'll see when everyone turns up their motors and gets rid of the fuel. We'll see what it's all about.
When the real game starts.
Exactly, when the real game starts. But yeah, it's full fun, and it's dry now, which is nice. So yeah, we'll see.
Has the circuit changed much in those 10 years?
No, it's exactly the same. It's just the car's a lot slower than I'm used to. But it's still fun to drive, and it's more challenging now because there's more cars on track, and it's a lot closer and less aerodynamic. So it's a little bit more enjoyable, and yeah, I look forward to the race.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, James Collado playing down the chances of Ferrari. 13th is his car, 16th is the sister car.
Yeah, it's up on the axle stands, having a few alterations made. That would normally look to me like they're making some geometry changes. But they've also got the scales under the car as well to make sure that when the car is put down, that the corner weights are equal along each side, the right front, right rear, left front, left rear. Valdemar Eriksson currently 37th in the scoring, and looking to see, is that going to see any improvement? Last lap, best lap 1:38.8. So it comes across the line, and the last lap is a 4 minutes and 8. So we just come out of the pits and he's onto a flying lap.
The slowest car of the session, surprisingly, is the Iron Dames Ferrari, and I would have thought that would be higher up the order.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean, watching them in the wet this morning, I thought they looked extremely good. Again, we don't know what they've been doing with the car. I think we're still 25 minutes away from the end of the session, and I would imagine that we'll find some improvement, unless there's an issue, a technical issue, which has stopped the car from being able to run in more quickly than it is presently doing.
Now, looking for the next improvement to come. Number 11, Thierry Vermeulen, has done a personal best in a sector. Valdemar Eriksson, former single-seater racer, like most, came out of the MRF Challenge amongst other categories. He's into the exit of turns 9 and 10 now. Comes down towards the Motodrome, swoops through turn 12. So the real-world Mercedes with virtual race sponsorship from a sim sports company. Valdemar Eriksson then into turn 16, runs it up the curb, but he's not going to improve. Look at the sector times, they're both slower than earlier.
No, I mean, his best time still 1:38.8, and he's not going to improve on that.
Over the timing line, another lap done. Now, I mentioned that the Iron Dames aren't doing so well in this session. Rahal Fry might be able to offer a thought on exactly why.
Rahel, obviously we're coming into this weekend off the back of a fantastic result in Spa, but not seeming to be going as according to plan at the moment. Is there a problem?
No, not really. Unfortunately, it doesn't look too good. Yes, we are at the back of the standings right now. We are struggling, clearly, but yeah, we simply have to keep on working. I mean, the time difference in Hockenheim is always very, very little. All cars are within 1.7 seconds. It's very impressive. Yeah, we simply have to improve, but we keep on fighting as usual, and we are racers by heart, so we will give our best in the race.
And like everybody always says, tomorrow's a new day where we really see things mix up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We will do good analysis tonight, clearly. Now we finish our practice, we will go through the run plan accordingly, and then we do our best in qualifying, and we try to race hard.
Thanks, Rahel. Have a better weekend.
Michel Gatting is the driver behind the wheel at the moment, and the Ferrari now comes up to the completion of a lap, again up the curve, heading to the timing line. That car will go through and break the beam. And let's go on board. Let's have a look at exactly what Michel Gatting is up to here.
Well, out of turn 1, I mean, did everything one would assume would be correct. Now the run down into turn 2, 225 kilometers per hour, makes her apex, that's fine. On the throttle, picks it up quickly, and then swings the quick cut back turn 3, then this gradual turn 4, 5, which is just really one long curve down into the braking zone. So the speed's building, 238, 40, 248, we're going to be 255, 6, 7, 8, just a hairs short of 260 kilometers per hour at just 160 miles an hour in round figures. So out of turn 6, then the sprint up here, flat as a kipper through turn 7. Delighted to hear it too. Then a big break down into turn 8. Make your apex, let the car drift out, then cut back, straighten it up, get 9, a straight line, then back to 10. Make sure you don't overrun on the exit. There's a curve there that can affect how the car exits. Now there's run down into the stadium section into turn 11. Gets it in again. I mean, everything looks ideal, other than maybe the overall pace is not as quick as those at the front, but as Rahal said in her interview, there's 1.7 seconds covering 49 cars, so it is a phenomenally close field. So currently still on a 139.4 for the car. So is this going to be a small improvement or not? There's a lot of noise coming from the car. Well, that's the front splitter hitting the ground or not. I'm not entirely sure, but as I noticed it a couple of corners around the lap.
And there is 93. So the Sky Tempesta Mercedes. Chris Froggatt is at the wheel of that car right now, and it's 36th fastest. It really hasn't been an easy season. They've done their best. They've certainly learnt about a new car. They've done the miles as Chris Froggatt rattles over the curb there. But yeah, all that success that they had with the Ferrari as a team has been hard to replicate.
I mean, I had expected more, because we know that the Mercedes-AMG GT3 is a race-winning car, not a class-winning car, but an overall race-winning car. And currently the quickest car of the field is the 88 Mercedes-AMG GT3. So how the team address finding more out of the package. The basic package is a turnkey car. You pick it up from Mercedes and they give you a key for it, and everybody picks up a car gets a key.
They've run with 2 Cs in the British Championship and Group M in Europe and in Britain, and now Haupt Racing Team. So different brains trusts have come along to try and get the best out of this car. Well, we know that Haupt is good. Lots of the brains trust of the Haupt Racing Team was at Black Falcon, of course, previously, and came within whiskers of winning championships. So in theory, they've got the right people operating the car now. Through that tight hairpin goes Chris Froggatt, who on this lap again is not improving within the first sector.
Interesting, he didn't run anywhere near as wide on the exit of turn 7 as we've seen others do. Maybe because he didn't need to, maybe because he senses that the car has got at that point enough grip not to need to run too far to the left.
Dives down now into the stadium once more. Through that little kink and to the end of a lap. And that, I would have thought, would be a finger wag from race control. The wrong side of the blue curbing. He's back onto the power now towards the line, but no improvements in sectors 1 nor 2, and the lap time is a 1:39.681, which is nearly a second away from the car's best.
I mean, you're driving the wheels off the thing. I mean, you can't say that Froggatt isn't trying.
No, indeed.
I mean, it is such a tight field. Giacomo Altway in the 19, Emile Frey racing Lamborghini. That would normally indicate something worth watching.
So up to the Spitzkehrer comes Altway. And whoa, off the road in the background goes number 56 Porsche that was slightly caught out in the braking zone there. That is Giorgio Roda at the wheel of the dynamic car. And it was easier to bail than make contact, I guess.
Oh, no, that was a big avoidance, and I think Giorgio Roda would have been thinking, wow, what went wrong there? What happened there? He seemingly was caught out, rather that maybe Lamborghini braked slightly earlier than he anticipated, or he didn't brake where he should have braked. Whatever it was, anyway, it would have been a moment for Giorgio Roda to dwell on, I think.
Yeah, see how much time it cost him. Giacomo Altway then comes through the stadium. Roda is 28th, and Altway's car is 12th fastest at the moment as he comes then up towards the completion of the lap. Up the curb, and now the run over the timing line.
Stage 12th, so no improvement. Thunders his way through turn 1. Stays on the right of screen, the left of the track and into turn 2. It comes to you pretty quickly, this circuit. I mean, the run from turn 16 down to turn 1, the speed that turn 1 has taken today, the corner's a much easier corner than would have been in earlier iterations of the layout. And you're not really, out of turn 3 and the run down to turn 6, getting an awful lot of opportunity just to sit back and draw breath.
Now, number 27 is Yusuf Ovega, and the Lippert run Lamborghini. Lippert, one of the mainstays of Super Trofeo, one mate Lamborghini racing. And Yusuf Ovega has raced in the German Championship, both GT3 and GT4 spec cars. But right now, the Lamborghini here is 35th as he comes up towards the line. With a hop and a skip over the curb as well. Now, are we, with 15 minutes to go, are we now going to see people gearing up for a dummy qualifying run? What do you think?
Well, it looks like the 30 Audi has done a personal best in Sector 1, Benjamin Goethe behind the wheel. So whether that is portent to something better, there's a few greens popping up. Altway got a green in that middle sector. Further down the field, Nico Müller in the 46 has got one green sector. And then Mirko Bortolotti likewise is popping up green, but the lap times are still not seeing any significant overall positional changes.
And the Gulf liveried Audi has just driven into the gravel in the Sachs Curve sequence of the circuit. It just ran out of road, and it's there rejoining. Benjamin Goethe at the wheel of it just missed his braking point, couldn't turn, skated off into the gravel.
Would that be sometimes called riding along on the crest of a slump?
Well, the good news is he's got going again at least, so the session remains live as their number 38 McLaren comes to the end of a lap. This is Rob Bell, and as you look at the Jota McLaren, his teammate Marvin Kirchhofer is standing in the pit lane ready to talk to Gemma.
Marvin, it's the first time here for the team. Individually, everybody's been here, but it's a massive learning curve this weekend. How's it going?
Yeah, it's not too bad, but a lot of information we need to collect. Unfortunately, free practice 1 was wet this morning, so couldn't learn much from that. But the guys are doing a great job, and we just try to improve the car and ourselves to be ready for tomorrow.
Essentially, what are you looking to really work hardest on?
Sorry, say again?
What have you got to work the most on at this point?
I think there's a bit everywhere. We're not there really yet with the setup. I think there's something to find, but also for us as drivers with that combination. We see on the data there's a few bits here and there, but if you put it all together, we should be in a good position.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Marvin Kirchhofer, along with Rob Bell and Ollie Wilkinson, the drivers of that car. Rob Bell and Marvin Kirchhofer particularly fast. Marvin, of course, like Rob, very good in single-seaters many, many years ago. And part of the McLaren family now is up towards the Spitzkehrer comes Rob Bell, who, of course, when this was a championship under a different name, outright title winner with Colm Lenegar and Shane van Gisbergen. Arjun Maini, the Indian driver, improving last time around. He's up to 32nd now, having been at the bottom end of the times for quite some time. Arjun Maini in another of the Mercedes AMGs, this one operated by Hubert Haupt's team. It's the one that Hubert himself shares along with Florian Scholzer.
A couple of other Mercedes that are totally out of position, in my view anyways. The Mad Panda Racing number 90 Ezequiel Perez compact in 47th position, and Lucas Auer in the 57th, and that's down in 48th position. So what has gone on? Where are these cars? That's the Windward Racing car. Where two super competitive Mercedes AMG GT3s way off, and there is the Mad Panda. You look at that and you think, well, that looks as quick as anything.
Yeah. Well, the Ezequiel Perez compact last time did two personal bests in sectors, but the Argentine driver unable to improve his lap time. 3 turns, and getting a replay here of Arjun Maini going wide over the curb, and behind was compact. That's why he didn't improve in the last sector.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a moment for Ezequiel Perez compact when he went wide like that. Got a bit of a kick in the tail as he came back onto the racetrack.
You don't kick a panda's tail, do you? That's beyond what's acceptable.
Animal lovers would hate you for that.
Indeed. No pandas were hurt in the making of that last lap. Down towards turn 7 he comes, flicks through the right, now goes left, steers clear of the curbing. Very tight line there. Didn't let the car run out at all, did he?
Maybe he's got a little bit more grip than he had previously. So coming back to the scene of that incident we watched a minute ago, he's still got personal best in sector 1, sector 2, nothing particular. So he's got traffic he can struggle to find a way around. That's not going to be an easy opportunity unless the Porsche pulls aside and lets Ezequiel Perez compact go through, but I don't think that's going to be. Oh dear me, looks, oh, well, yeah, there we are. Enough said, I think, David, enough said.
The Porsche he was trying to get past was number 22, the Allied Racing entry. He couldn't, he ran wide, he's looped it, and is off the racetrack, but now tries to get going. Dominic Fishley was in that number 22, not being overly cooperative. He'd been in the way a bit, but anyway, in the end here was the Mad Panda Mercedes, turned in, ran wide, on the marbles and around.
Yes, and if that was a fresh set of tyres, again, the spin will not have done those tyres very much good. So Mad Panda getting back, having to drive onto the grass, and then returns on the inside of turn 16, and he'll be frustrated and probably saying a few words in Spanish, as his native language being an Argentinian.
Ezequiel Perez Companc, who of course we used to see as part of the Lamborghini family, then had a season with WRT, had his sizable accident at Paul Ricard, and then came back from that, starting his own team, the Mad Panda Motorsports Squad, and it's now in its, what, 3rd year, and also running this year in the German Championship. There's Dominic Fishley, number 22, who wasn't being, as I say, overly helpful, but he survived all of that and continues on his way down towards the turn 8 sequence, and then down to the Sachs curve he will go. But this is Lucas Auer in the Winwood racing car.
Well, they made a significant improvement, because at one point not very long ago they were 48th, so they've found pace and up to 29th. So that's, and also Benjamin Hites, the 563 BSR, Vincent Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo to give its full title. So that's up to 41st position.
And who is in 46 Audi, because it's just gone rattling through the gravel coming into the stadium. You're looking at Lucas Auer heading to the timing line. This car has got a long way down early on. It has chipped its way back into contention. 29th now is Lucas Auer as he goes through. Nico Müller is the answer to my number 46 question, by the way. He's just gone through the gravel. 8 3/4 minutes are on the clock. Benjamin Hites for VSR, Vincenzo Sospiri's team, 41st in the times. And he's got a bit trapped there behind Manuel Maldonado, the now British domicile driver. British citizen, comes into the stadium. But the VSR Lamborghini, with its stickers flapping on the left-hand side, bails from the lap, slows right down. Can't easily get through the traffic, so you'll try and let Maldonado go, then pick up his pace again.
Interesting, Schondorf in the number 7 McLaren has gone 4th quickest, so we've got McLaren's 4th, 5th and 6th, Dennis Lind 5th, and Maldonado in 6th. So suddenly the McLarens are popping up into that top 6, 3 of their cars.
Just had another Audi, there it is, at very, very high speed, careering off the racetrack coming into the stadium, and he went from turn 12 to turn 13 all the way on the grass. That was Marius Zug. And I think it's 2 laps in a row that Zug has done that, so he's overdriving it. Here you are. Off,
Ooh.
off,
Ooh.
off,
Ooh.
off, off, still off, and then finally on.
Didn't have very much braking power. The grass, of course, is still wet. The racetrack bone dry, but the grass is wet, so you get onto that and you're going to struggle to slow your car down.
So Marius Zug for Attempto Racing. Let's see whether he can master it this time around. Clock ticks on down and the road is getting busier. And
Dries van Thor, purple in sector 1.
So number 32 Audi is third in the times. Kim Louis Schramm for Attempto has gone second. It is then number 88 Raffaele Marciello from earlier on, but you're on board with Van Thor now.
So coming into turn 8. Watch and see what the Belgian driver manages. Clean out of, flat out through turn 10. This is coming up to the bogey corner, coming into the stadium. Don't make a mistake here. Dries runs the curve inside. Gets a good run, wow, out to the very edge, but carries the speed. He's just a 1/10 of a second down this middle sector, but that might be enough to see him elevate himself up from the present third position he's in, if assuming he gets through these final 2 right-hand corners. Turn 15 and 16, gets it, oh yeah, not bad. Looks, he's got it lined up now to fire it across. Start-finish line. Can this be the fastest time of the day? No.
Misses out in the last sector. So it started off really well. He's got another shot at it though. 6 more minutes are on the clock. But I was about to say, before you picked up on that first sector time, how much busier the road was. There are only about 4 cars in the pit lane at the moment. So the racetrack has got busy, and suddenly, because it is busy, because people are trying, it feels completely different again out there.
All right, so that time, this time I should say, through sector 1 is only, well, 21.5 seconds. It didn't match his purple sector time then 1 lap ago. So again, you're looking at probably a fresh or a new set of rubber on the 32 Audi, and having used them on that first flying lap, not getting out of it what he had hoped for. So sector 2 and 3 were the 2 sectors that lost him fractions of seconds. He needs to claw back if he possibly can, coming through turn 8. And he's going to have a relatively clear run to conclude this lap. So again, sector 2 times for Dries Van Thor. Nothing coming yet. Where is that sector time? He's backed out of it. That's where sector time is.
Roll the dice, couldn't do it. So is he going to come in and call it a session, or will he go again if he can let the traffic clear ahead of him? We'll find out in a moment as the session ticks down towards its close. The top speed, the fastest part of the circuit, is up towards the Spitzkehrer, and Vincent Abril, number 111, McLaren, fastest from McLaren and McLaren, Brendan Areed and Rob Bell, then Max Hesser's BMW, and then another McLaren, that of Dean McDonald, in terms of a top speed.
And impressive, 4 McLarens in the top 5, 270 kilometers per hour. As we go back to this, is this 51? Is this James Collado behind the wheel, or?
Yes, it is.
It is indeed. So running up into turn 1, but he's being pressured by the Lamborghini behind.
So Collado taking over from Miguel Molina and Nicholas Nielsen that we saw in the car at the start of the session. He's got time for 2, maybe 3 more laps. And there the Lamborghini on the attack. Strives to get up the inside then as they break for the hairpin, and Yusufa Vega does go through.
I'm surprised. I mean, Vega would look the quicker of the 2, and I don't know where the Ferrari pace is, but there was nothing that James Collado was able to do to defend other than be aggressive, and the Lamborghini just out straight lined the Ferrari. I'm surprised.
Red flag. Red flag with 3 minutes to go. I can't imagine we're going to get back up and running, and the reason for the stoppage is not instantly apparent. Quick look around the stadium. Can't find you a car. Nothing I can see at turn 2, so something has happened. And so the session is brought to a halt. And suddenly as well, so there was
very
no...
abruptly, that was a quick,
yeah, no messing
red
there.
flag. There's no messing about in that one.
So as soon as we can, we'll update the story, but the session is stopped, and with about an outlap left in the session, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively finished. The clock's still ticking down anyway, because it's not a qualifying session, it's a pre-qualifying session, so the clock will, everybody will be back in the pit lane, and the clock will be at 0.
So, Jules Gounon is the man in the car that was the fastest, but it's Raffaele Marciello that did the time. So, as far as we know, it's not actually an on-track issue that's done this. So, Raffaele Marciello is the fastest, and Jules Gounon out of the car, and he can reflect on that session in the company of Gemma Scott.
Jules, a very busy man, but also the fastest man on track in that session.
Well, it wasn't me, it was Lelo. So Lelo had the new tires at the beginning of the session. Our car looks good, but you know, as always, we are a team and a brand that always show everything we've got. So we went for a quali sim. I don't know what's gonna be the race for the other on track, but the car felt good, so we are pretty happy about the balance and everything. We're gonna still work a bit more to go to the perfect balance for quali tomorrow morning, hopefully.
Well, you're certainly coming into this event with a fantastic Spa result and high hopes for the championship.
Yeah, we had an amazing week in Spa. It was, I still have a big smile, and I think the whole team is still surfing on the good vibe, because winning this race, Acclimatise has been trying for many, many years, and also as a driver, it's an amazing feeling to win this race. So we're just gonna try to do our work, not think too much about the championship, take it as we all did during the whole year long, try to do a good job, and hopefully we score some good points.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Gemma.
So Jules Gounon, whose father raced here in FIA GT days. Jules has raced here in the German Championship, and as he quite rightly echoes the point we were making, it was Raffaele Marciello that was the fastest. The time, in the end, 1 minute 37.643, just a thousandth quicker than Dennis Marshall in number 66 Audi. Dries van Thor was third from Frederik Schandorf, and then number 111, that was a Christian Clean time set early in the session. Next was Dean McDonald, who, although he caused the first red flag, was very, very quick from Luca Giotto, and then Benjamin Goethe with Mauro Engel and Christopher Meeks rounding out the top 10. Interesting session that, with a real spread of cars, spread of times, real mix of order amongst the classes as well. James Collado, Miguel Molina, Nicholas Nielsen 16th. Augusto Farfus along with Nick Yellerly, Nick Katzberg, the BMW that they drive down in 18th. Work to do tomorrow. Another good, impressive effort from Benjamin Le Sen, the Belgian driver, getting the Boutsen Audi to 20th. And we had Ian Loggy, Dominic Baumer, Valentin Pierberg 22nd. The Mad Panda Mercedes, languishing at the foot of the times for quite a long while, eventually got itself up into 31st, despite Ezequiel Perez Companc having a spin. And the Iron Dames Ferrari struggling today for whatever reason, but that is the slowest. Sarah Bovey, Michel Gatting and Rahel Frey. But again, come 3 hours of racing, things could all change there as well. And then the last handful of cars, 1 or 2 drivers set to go and see the stewards after the session. And tomorrow morning, the cars will be on track for qualifying, and the 3 parts of qualifying, of course, will determine the grid. They'll be on track from 9:45. Let's just look back at some of the best bits of that pre-qualifying session. Very different track conditions now from what we had earlier on in the day, with the circuit bone dry, temperatures much, much higher, and drivers straight away pressing on, eager to do the work that they couldn't do in the wet. But a spin, ironically, in the dry, not the rain, from Frederik Schandorf coming onto the pit straight. Dean McDonald had been looking good, but he was another one eventually that dropped it into the gravel. In his case, it was coming into the stadium and he had a bit of a wobble and caused the session to be interrupted. The Audis of car collection were quick early on as well, especially number 12, Luca Giotto at the wheel. This was Dean McDonald's drama that put him off the road and a long way through the gravel. That was the end of him. We had this spin for Ezequiel Perez Companc because he tried to get away past Dominic Fischli's rather wide Allied Racing Porsche, but he looped it and around he went. And no dramas, he was able to get going again with Dries van Thor having one last roll of the dice to try to get his Audi up to the very top of the times it wasn't to be, and he would end the session 3rd fastest. So, pre-qualifying is done for this penultimate round of Fanatec GT Endurance Cup. We'll be on track, of course, at 9:45 tomorrow morning for qualifying, but for now, from Gemma Scott, John Watson and David Anderson, thanks for your company today. We'll see you tomorrow for more of the same. It's goodbye for now.